Bob Lazar points out that there are 3 gravity emitters underneath these flying saucers, and when they point them and connect them together, they can pull space towards the object. This is exactly what we're seeing happen with respect to the teleportation. I mean, maybe it's being explained slightly differently, but it's substantially the same thing. And so he brings an additional detail up, which is that they have to make multiple hops
on its side.
They have to make multiple hops to pull this off. Now, I'll explain right after I play this clip why the multiple hops is so important.
Well, on the bottom side of the disk are the 3 gravity generators. When they want to travel to a distant point, the disk turns on its side. The 3 gravity generators produce a gravitational beam. What they do is they converge the 3 gravity generators onto a point and use that as a focal point. Then they essentially bring them up to power and pull that point towards the disk. The disk itself will attach onto that point and snap back as they release space back to that point. Now, all this happens in the distortion of time, so time is not incrementing. So the speed is essentially infinite. Well, on the bottom side of the disk.
So Bob Lazar is saying you can go faster than light, basically using an extra dimension, saying the exact thing I just explained about this plane, like a railgun. And that the speed is potentially infinite, because from the outsider's perspective, you're just literally just hopping through a shortcut that we can't see. So the distance now, in theory, could be forever. But here's the problem. Even if I railgun you through an extra dimension, you likely still have to worry about the gravitational forces of the celestial bodies. What I mean by this is you don't want me to railgun you into the sun. Because if that happens, you might get stuck in the center of the sun due to the gravitational pull. So this is a situation where you probably have to set up a series of hops. If I want to get to a different location in the universe, I'm going to have straight line hops from one location to the next where I avoid the celestial bodies, where I avoid the giant balls of mass that have a huge gravitational pull. So I'm essentially going to be slingshotting around the universe using this form of teleportation. To me, that means it's almost certainly going to be like jump gates, warp gates in sci-fi, where there's specific points that are the most ideal points to do a jump to the next location, like a highway. I thought that was wild because that fits perfectly with the exact kind of teleportation that they're doing to that plane that I'm able to deduce just from the videos. He says another thing that was pretty weird. He says the gravity waves are used to culminate a beam to make a particle weapon. Wow. What he's saying there is you can control a particle beam because you can basically cause things to move whatever path you want them to follow. So you can turn this into what? A particle accelerator. That's what he's saying. You can use this gravitational warping to make a particle accelerator. Well, what am I telling you guys those orbs are? Fusion reactor, energy, particle accelerator, gravitational effects. In fact, Bob Lazar says when he opens up the gravity device, flips it open, he says there's a ring going all the way around it. And he says he wondered if that's not a particle accelerator. Exactly. Why? Remember the spinning superconductors? Superconductivity is super important because you want zero resistance. So your electrical current is potentially only limited by what the material can hold. So he even brings up the idea of particle accelerators being involved in this. I find that totally wild. The other thing he mentions is that they must have been talking somehow using a different communication mechanism. He says if somebody was inside the craft, how are they talking to them? If there's a gravitational bubble around the craft, the electromagnetic waves can't penetrate. So he sat there and he says, I couldn't understand how they were communicating to the craft. Quantum communication, chat. This would imply, if this story is true, they already had quantum communications in the early 90s and the late 80s. Already had working quantum communications. They were able to penetrate the warp bubble and still communicate with the person on the inside, which is what Hal Puthoff's patent is. Early 1990s patent. Communication device. I know, very specific. It's literally a device that can communicate through mediums which EM fields cannot, like plasma, salt water. Hal Puthoff himself. And if that's true, then that's a good example of the type of how the technology leaks out. 10 years after Bob Lazar already saw it, Hal Puthoff is patenting it 10 years later. Okay. And then the other point I want to bring up, if you think about it, of course they knew how all this stuff worked. We're going to talk about Aerogel in a second, but if you listen to Bob Lazar's story, they're ripping out one of these gravity emitters from the ship and they're just playing with it. You think they're going to let you play with it if they don't know how it works? One of the other details he says is he got allergy shots. He goes to the doctor, the nurse, maybe doctor or nurse, and he has to get these allergy shots. I know they're allergy shots because my brother is allergic to bees. And so when he was younger, he did all the allergen testing and the desensitization. And you get all these shots and then they check to see what you're allergic to. Why would they be doing that to him unless they had some idea of what he was going to be exposed to? Think about it. If they had no clue, what are you allergy checking them for? You don't even know what you're allergy checking them for. Just check to see if they just randomly have any allergies. Doesn't make any sense. You only do that if you have some idea of what you're dealing with and what you're concerned the interaction is going to be. I'm trying to think of what other stuff. But this is why, in general, the feel of what Bob Lazar says, to me, I can't think of any reason why I would think they're trying to figure this technology out for the first time in Bob Lazar's story. They're flying the planes around. They're bringing random people to the facility and showing them the technology, like Bob Lazar, who's like complete newbies. To me, the only reason why you're doing this is because you've already got the technology figured out. And I think that's the big secret, is that they've been leading people astray, letting people think that we don't have this technology. We can't figure this technology out. When in fact they have. They've been very successful at figuring it out. And probably the bigger issue is the brain drain. People retiring, dying, disappearing. How do you bring new people into the fold without the whole thing being exposed? That's probably the bigger issue. Aerogel. This is probably the biggest reveal of all of them from the Bob Lazar. He says that he was actually transporting the element 115. Now, I am not convinced you need element 115, but I also wouldn't rule it out. Could there be a super heavy element we use for fuel? Sure, I don't see why not. We already do fission, so why wouldn't we be able to, right? So it's not that it can't be real. It just seems unnecessary. Fusion is much more efficient. Any civilization that's figured out fusion, I don't see a reason to even have fission anymore, personally. Not if you can pull 0-point energy out using fusion, then we really don't need it. So anyway, this element 115 is specifically machined, built by the U.S. government, according to Bob Lazar. He says they specifically machine this element. Now, here's an alternative theory for you on the element 115. What if it's actually like a microchip? What if that wasn't some radioactive material, some isotope of moscovium? What if it was actually a microchip, a super detailed atomic level microchip that was built in such a way to amplify gravitational waves naturally from the medium? That would make more sense to me because they didn't have any, it didn't seem like Bob Lazar was wearing any radiation material. If you're having some kind of isotope element 115, I would imagine people would be full in a bubble, not just handling it, walking around with it. That's my impression. The other thing, though, the aerogel. My goodness, the aerogel, chat. I think we figured out something big with this aerogel thing here. Bob Lazar says when he was transporting the element 115, it was encased in this weird substance that he didn't know what it was at the time, but later on finds out it was aerogel. Now, what is aerogel? Aerogel is a very specifically chemically engineered material that is super resistant to heat, not thermal conductive, meaning you blast a bunch of heat at it and nothing happens. So I did a little Googling, and I found a deleted post. I'm just going to read it. It says, aerogel is used in thermonuclear weapons to create plasma from the first stage fission explosion that enables the second stage fusion explosion to occur. It was invented in the 30s, but it was not widely available until at least the 40s. It's actually never been widely available. Now, in addition to this, flashback to one of our previous live streams, and we spoke about fog bank, the secret nuclear material that the United States government forgot how to make, that they had to go reverse engineer their own material to figure out how they made it. And it's speculated it was an aerogel. Well, chat. The secret nuclear material, an aerogel that can be used to create a plasma from the first stage in a thermonuclear fusion bomb. Well, I had a different thought. And it turns out, friend of the show, let me find his post. I don't want to do him any injustice here. Other people were having a similar thought. Here we go. Wait, where is it? Shout out to Jordan Crowder. If you guys aren't following Jordan Crowder, check his content out on X. I think he's on all the social medias, though, as well. Jordan Crowder said something exactly what I was thinking. I love when this happens. He said fog bank wasn't interesting merely because it could become a plasma. It accidentally taught researchers how to structure plasma. Imagine that classified weapon research revealed that an aerogel-like material could act as a temporary three-dimensional scaffolding. You start with extraordinarily intricate nanoscale solid architecture. Dump enough electromagnetic energy and the solid disappears. But perhaps under carefully controlled conditions, aspect of the organization imposed by the structure could briefly survive. Why is this big? This is exactly what you need for a fusion bomb. Exactly. Why? Because you need perfect compression from all directions. So how do you make that happen? You soak your fog bank in boron 11. You soak it in the fusion material, the fusion fuel. You don't just have the fog bank, you put the fuel inside the fog bank. And the fog bank is your fusion bomb. And all the fusion materials in the exact right location, so that all you have to do is squeeze it. All you have to do is squeeze it, and it's going to give you a perfectly efficient explosion. Perfectly efficient explosion. And you know why this is so big? If this live stream gets shut down or I get arrested, you'll know this is true, by the way. Kind of joking, kind of not. The reason why this is so big is because they were trying to make pure fusion bombs. And this material is supposedly very difficult to produce. So hard that we had to find out how to reverse engineer it. And you say, well, why would it be so hard? Any material that you just mix it together, it's not that the mixing together is the difficult part. The difficult part is you need all the fusion fuel to evenly disperse throughout the fog bank. That's the trick. I might be teaching our adversaries how to make thermonuclear weapons here, by the way, chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm absolutely speculating. This stream is for entertainment purposes only. And I don't know for a fact that any of this is true. Nobody has leaked this to me. But in my heart of hearts, I feel it to be true. The hard part would be taking your fusion fuel, deuterium, tritium, your helium-3, your boron-11, and getting it to perfectly disperse evenly throughout the aerogel. Because once you figure that out, then you basically have a ready-to-go fusion bomb. Wow. Bob Lazar is bringing the heat.